Winkler moves that House File number 445 be taken from the table.
Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that House File 445 be taken from the table. It's the bill that we tabled Monday. It's the SAFE Act, and I ask for a yes vote.
Any discussion on the motion to take the bill from the table? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no.
No.
The motion prevails. House File 445 is before us. Clerk will report the bill.
House File number 445, an act relating to public safety.
I recognize the member from Ramsey, the author, Representative Mariani, to describe the bill.
Madam Speaker and members, I rise today to encourage the passage of House File 445. Today I will be authoring an amendment in a few seconds here. I spoke on this bill extensively when we first brought it up on the floor a couple days ago, and so I won't repeat my full comments there. I want to describe very, very quickly House File 445 comes to us via the executive branch. It seeks to meet the safety of all Minnesotans by creating a state contingency special revenue fund to provide funds to local public safety agencies for managing large-scale public disturbances while advancing the ability of our constitutional rights of public protest be protected. The bill touches on very big, important issues for our society that some would say, quite frankly, could be thought of in terms of a crisis of public safety, a crisis of the manner of our law enforcement work and approach, a crisis of our human rights issues. This bill does not answer all of those issues. It only approaches them, but it does recognize it. And it does so through two responses in the bill that are inseparable from the challenges before us. One is the need for a strong public safety response to be part of protecting personal and property, to make sure that person and property are safe. And an inseparable issue, the need to have that public safety response protect our First Amendment right to public assembly as citizens' voice changes to public safety systems that have produced the killing in our state of George Floyd and of many other Black lives over time. I will offer a major change in my author's amendment in a second here that narrows down the bill as it emerged from the Public Safety Committee, Public Safety Criminal Justice Reform Committee, and the Ways and Means. And the amendment will narrow down the already, in my opinion, reasonable accountability provisions the bill contains in order to secure support for responsible action here today. That is the nature of legislative compromise, members. And so with that, Madam Speaker, I will move the amendment, the A30 amendment.
There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Mariani is moving to amend House File number 445. The second engrossment as follows. The amendment is coded A30.
Representative Mariani, to your amendment.
Madam Speaker and members, this amendment has five major areas in it, or features. One is that it allows the after-action review within the bill to withhold information that may compromise public finances. This came as a recommendation from our League of Cities. The second is that it states that the report prepared is inadmissible as evidence at a trial, hearing, or civil court process, And the why for that, members, is that what we're wanting with this report is to make it possible to learn and develop best practices to adapt our work. To do that, we need to encourage honest assessments of public safety work. That report will be submitted to the council that this legislature created late last year at the Post Board, the Peace Officers Standards and Training Board, for their consideration in terms of learning from the experience of mutual aid supported public safety responses for possible constant reflection on updating, modernizing our standards for licensing for peace officers in our state. So it's really seeking to have an honest evaluation of events on the ground so that we can continue to make better our approaches to public safety. Third, it adds a post-board compliance review after each major public safety event that qualifies for SAFE Act fund reimbursement. Members, this is actually standard language. You will find compliance review language throughout the statutes that govern the operations of the Post Board. It makes sense that you would have your state agency constantly looking to make sure that policies that it promulgates and encourages adoption are in fact being adhered to. Fourth, it rewrites the model policy section in the bill to incorporate discussions that we've had with law enforcement and to highlight the need for diverse voices in developing that policy. And then the final piece, most critically, members, it removes the direct officer accountability provision that emerged from the Public Safety Criminal Justice Reform Committee and the Ways and Means Committee. Personally, I think that's unfortunate. However, in order to secure the support that we need to secure in order to meet the needs that are very important throughout this bill, it's important that we take this action today. That is the nature of legislative compromise. I will certainly continue my efforts with that and other reform efforts in other venues. So with that, Madam Speaker, I stand for any questions.
Any discussion to the Mariani Amendment? Representative Johnson.
Speaker Hortman, members, Representative Mariani, I want to thank you for trying to make a bad bill a little bit better. But there's a problem with this amendment. On this amendment, it does not let the after-action report be used in a civil court case where it can exonerate somebody that was just following orders. And for that reason, I request a no vote.
Any further discussion to the Mariani A30 Amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no.
Aye. No.
The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Drazkowski moves to amend House File Number 445, the second engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A32.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski, to-year amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm digging for the amendment here. Madam Speaker and members, the A32 amendment simply states that it shall be the policy of the state of Minnesota to support peace officers and recognize their crucial role in protecting our citizens, the rule of law, and the Minnesota and United States constitutions. Madam Speaker, members, one of the downfalls of where we're at is that we haven't been able as a state to solidly and completely and universally communicate and represent our support for the peace officers who hold up the rule of law that is created in this body, that we bring forward, and that we expect to uphold the rule of law. We need to provide the support for them. The public sentiment needs to be strong, and this is a very good step, I think, in the right direction to represent that this body, the Minnesota House of Representatives, supports our people in blue, the people who protect us from bad things in all of our communities and enforce the rule of law that we put forward each and every year here in the Minnesota House of Representatives. I encourage your support and would ask for a roll call on this amendment.
Representative Drazkowski requests a roll call. Are there 15 hands? There's one hand in the chamber. Members, you have 60 seconds to email hands@house.mn. I finally have a 1-minute timer, so we'll be able to more easily see when the 60 seconds are up. There are not 15 hands. There will not be a roll call. There's an amendment to the amendment. The clerk will report the amendment.
Hewitt moves to amend the Drazkowski amendment to House File Number 445, the second engrossment as amended. The amendment to the amendment is coded A33.
The member from Dakota, Representative Hewitt. The member from Dakota, Representative Hewitt, to your amendment to the amendment, the A33.
Madam Speaker, can you hear me?
Yes, Representative Hewitt, please proceed.
I'm sorry. Madam Speaker, that is my amendment. This amends Representative Drazkowski's amendment to also include frontline workers in healthcare, such as nurses, doctors, EMTs, paramedics, firefighters, others such as Red Cross. We should recognize all of our frontline workers. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Any discussion to the Hewitt amendment to the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. Aye. The motion prevails. The amendment to the amendment is adopted. Any further discussion on the Drazkowski amendment as amended by the Hewitt amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Miller moves to amend House File Number 445, the second engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A21-0020.
The member from Candy Ojai, Representative Miller.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. And I can see by the way we're moving forward with this bill today that the words that were uttered by my good friend on the other side of the aisle were not well taken. And we're going to plow forward with something that is very serious at this time in our state's history, really probably our nation's history. And for reasons unbeknownst to me, because obviously it's not important to communicate to everyone, we're just going to ram this through and do what we need to do. So I'm going to move forward with my amendment the best I can. I wasn't even notified that we would be doing this, much less that my amendments would still be alive, but they are, so I'm thankful for that. So here we go. So when I talk to people and try to explain the legislative process back home, it's really, a lot of times I ask a question and it can best be answered by explaining the process more often than not. The information usually isn't confusing, just how things happen here tend to be confusing for your average citizen, which is ironic to me. I tell them, I say, you will hear a lot of talking points, a lot of issues about the bill, but it's important to understand the things that aren't discussed as well. And that can be the tricky part. So that's what my amendment does here. A lot of the talk will be today about, are we going to fund? How are we going to fund? Who are we going to fund? What's going to come along with this funding? But there's a very important part of this bill that's before us today, in that it's an ongoing program. We created a new office or a department or whatever you want to call it. We create a new entity which is ongoing, that'll be constantly filled, and it'll be used to fund whenever the governor sees fit to bring law enforcement from different jurisdictions, call them up, and bring them to the source of whatever they feel that it is they need to go. So any agreements between two jurisdictions, the way we normally did it, it probably won't be done like that anymore. It's all going to go through the governor's office. And the best way that I can explain this to the people in my district is this is really essentially a militarization of law enforcement from across the across the state of Minnesota, and I guess in some cases other states, to be sent to different places by the governor. I explain that if you want to understand this, this is sort of like the federal government calling up the National Guard of the state into service for our nation's needs, only this is a little bit different. This is law enforcement, this isn't military, and this is states' issues, this is not federal issues. This is very concerning to me. And while I did talk to all of my sheriffs and most, if not all, of my police chiefs in my district about this bill, and they had some things that they did like, that they didn't like. One thing that they do not like is if they are put in a position to where they are essentially compelled to do something and they're not listening to their county commissioners or their city councils or the people that they represent, but it'll be by the governor instead. Now, make it very clear that they also, or I want also to be clear that they also said that if there's a need in Minneapolis this year, they want to support that. And they will certainly come, and they're hopeful that there is funding for that. Last year they came, I know a couple came and they weren't funded, but they would certainly do that, and they really need the funding. And I think we all can appreciate that and understand that. So after much thinking, what this bill essentially does is I won't go page by page. There are some things that are taken out of what the main bill is that I don't think are appropriate, like Section 2. There are some changes to the reporting. I won't get into those details. I really want this amendment to be presented as a whole. And what this does is this recognizes that we do have a need. We've had poor leadership in the Twin Cities for many years, but especially on this specific issue over the last year. We've lost police officers because of it. And I think the one thing that is also not being spoken of is that our Twin Cities are highly exposed right now to grave danger, and I think we all recognize that we have to do something about that. So what this bill does, this amendment does, is it by and large, there's some differences. I don't agree with the author on everything, but it by and large moves forward and says, yes, we do recognize the need for this coming up in just a couple weeks. We do recognize the potential dangers to our business owners, to our citizens, to the law enforcement of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the surrounding area, and we're going to support you in that. But we're going to take care of it this year, and then it's going to be over. This is a one-time thing. I think this amendment is more than reasonable. If we decide this works well and we have future use for something like this, as a body, we can discuss that. But the reason why we're rushing through this today, unless there's some unknown political reason, which would not surprise me, but the reason for the state of Minnesota that we are doing this is we do have an impending issue coming up in the next couple weeks. This amendment can take care of that, members, and because of that, I ask for your support.
Discussion to the Miller Amendment. The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I actually had my hand up for the last amendment, but maybe put one in the bank for me, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Sorry about that, Representative Drazkowski. Any further discussion to the Miller Amendment? Representative Mariani.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and to my good friend, Representative Miller. Let me just say that, quite frankly, I'm a little tempted, but that really reflects in many ways the thinking that I had to struggle with in regards to this issue. I do agree with Representative Miller that there's a high likelihood that our Twin Cities metro area may be exposed to potentially large-scale dangers in the coming months. And so that has greatly motivated me. I want to acknowledge Representative Miller's recognition of that, as well as the recognition that we should be supporting one another. There have been floating arguments around this legislature about how whatever happens in your physical backyard doesn't pertain to me, and I have no responsibility, to be a part of helping you with that. I can't think of a more anti-Minnesotan message than that. And so Representative Miller and I think, have a shared value in that. I am not certain that the attention and the focus will be exclusively in this geographic area. I'm not even certain that it'll be exclusive to these trials. I'm certainly open, assuming the bill continues, to have that conversation and explore it and see what might be limitations then that match, our growing awareness. But at this point, I would hesitate to adopt that conclusion. I also do want to note that the amendment does remove the Section 2 of the bill that speaks to those First Amendment issues, as well as the learning opportunities with the after-action review and a couple of other good governance and reform attempts. And so at this point, I would urge members to not adopt the 020 Miller Amendment.
Any further discussion to the Miller Amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no.
No.
The motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Miller moves to amend House File Number 445, the second engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A25.
The member from Candido High, Representative Miller, to your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, so much of what I said in the last amendment applies here. I won't repeat that. But when we had in Ways and Means, we had this bill brought forward I asked the question of the Department of Public Safety Commissioner what the current strength was in Minneapolis. Now, for people that don't understand, there are charter cities in our state, and in those charter cities and their charters, some, I don't know if all, I couldn't find that out, but some, and Minneapolis is the case, they actually have a description of what the force size of the police should be. So we can actually figure out based on population what that number is. And I don't know the exact number. I know it's about 840, I believe, somewhere in that range. I know it's over 800. And I asked the commissioner what the current strength was in the Minneapolis police force and what the change has been over the last year. And I asked what the change has been over the last year because I've heard some rumors, some conjecture, some firsthand knowledge, but I haven't seen official reports on if that had changed and what the change is. And his response was to me, he didn't know the current force, but he had read in a newspaper somewhere that over the last year it had dropped by 200, around 200. So let's presume that it was at full force, which I don't think it was before this, but let's presume that, and let's presume that the number that he stated was accurate. It's about a quarter of the force that's been lost over the last year, and that also means that it's at, under the best of circumstances, 75%. Now, the numbers that I've heard are a lot lower than that. I'm not going to speak to that. But the reason for this amendment is as I said in my last amendment, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the area is exposed. And I think we're all worried about that and concerned about that. But I also know that one of the problems we have in the legislature here in Minnesota in the years that I've been here is we can't seem to remember the mistakes we've made in the past or the issues necessarily that drive to where we're at now. We just say, well, here's how we're going to fix it. And usually it's money is the way that we fix it. And there's a lot of areas where I think that's foolish. In this case, I do think that money is going to be the answer. But I also know that we have to find a way to hold those people responsible and accountable for the mistakes and the problems that they've created, and not necessarily as punishment, but to have them grow and have them improve and have them do things better. And so I thought of a couple examples that I don't have in front of my notes right now, so I'll just do this off of the top of my head, but I thought of a few examples. You know, in life, why do we give children an allowance? We give them an allowance so that they can be responsible and learn how to use money. And a lot of times we base that allowance on work that they need to do. And if they don't do the work, they don't get the allowance. In a business, there might be bonuses involved based on the performance, or you may not get a raise based off of a performance. I know out by me in the troubling times for some farmers that we've had in recent years, they were worried this spring about planting. And they had to go to the banks, and the banks were saying you can't have a loan unless you do things under the following conditions. And it was A, B, C, D, E, and F. And some of them could be very difficult. But it was a way to get things corrected and back in order. So as we move forward and we fund these different, we backfill, we fill, we fund, all these different things, I think that it's important for us to hold accountable the bad decisions that have been in the Twin City leadership, certainly over the last year, that's caused the problem that they have in the police force. And so, members, I think this is a very reasonable amendment. I know that when you're in the minority and you present an amendment, it's automatically dismissed. But if you think about it, members, this is a reasonable thing to say, if we are going to be sending in people from my district that are in law enforcement and putting their lives at risk, having them move away from their families for a period of time, serving the people of the Twin Cities, it would only stand to reason that the people of the Twin Cities hold their end of the bargain. And the best way we can do this is to say that the police force needs to be at 90% before they get the funding that's required of them. Now, the good news is I've heard reports that Minneapolis is moving forward to increase their police force, put cadets in training, increase funding, so that's very encouraging. I think we need to continue with them in that encouragement. This is not unreasonable to expect a major city like Minneapolis to be able to be at 90% workforce. the Minneapolis Police Department at 90% workforce. And so that's why I'm including this amendment. And members, I ask for your support.
Discussion to the Miller Amendment. Representative Mariani.
Madam Speaker, members, I would urge non-adoption of the Miller Amendment. Let me just very quickly say that there's a lot of reasons why a police department would either contract or get smaller or grow. Some of that is demographic issues. We do know that after incredible trauma, including trauma to our peace officers last year, that there are lots of anecdotal stories of peace officers then choosing to exit, particularly those who were older and nearing retirement age anyway. As Representative Miller has shared, that particular police department has taken, and that city has taken some strong steps to be able to replenish its force with some fresh folks. And so I wouldn't jump to a conclusion in terms of what is happening there, and I wouldn't condition really what the priority is behind this bill, which is to be able to assess the capacity of a local resources, the jurisdictions of local resources to meet public safety, especially for very distinct activities that hopefully never arise again, but could, that are large scale. This is about keeping Minnesotans safe, and that's where we need to start first and foremost. I understand the argument that Representative Miller is putting forward. At best, I would say that the evidence does not support any suggestion that there is a negative desire on the part of the local jurisdiction not to take care of its own public safety. At the very most, I would say that what should be guiding this bill is to make sure that we've got the resources at hand to be able to maximize our ability to help keep Minnesotans safe. And so with that, members, I would urge non-adoption of the 825 amendment.
Any further discussion to the Miller Amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Miller Amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. No. The motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Drazkowski moves to amend House File Number 445, the second engrossment, as amended. The amendment is coded A31.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, members, the discussion seems to be centered around what happened in Minneapolis last summer, end of May and early June. And as I recall that, we had action there from two organizations, Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Antifa has been around in Minnesota, to my knowledge, for the last almost 2 years now. An anarchist group that has committed terrorism in this state and other places in this country many, many times. What this amendment would do is recognize in statute Antifa as a terrorist organization. I encourage your support, Madam Speaker and members. This would demonstrate that we as a legislature are looking at the realities of what are happening in our state and helping to lead in a direction that leads to enforcement of our laws, support of the rule of law, support of our laws and our constitutions. I'd encourage your support of the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Representative New Brindley, for what purpose do you rise?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm concerned that given the strike zone that has been set, that this, I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, I'd like to rise to a point of order.
State your point of order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm concerned that the strike zone that has been set would preclude this amendment based on germaneness.
Representative New Brindley rises to a point of order under germaneness. Rule 3.21, motions and propositions must be germane. I have considered the point of order and find the point of order well taken.
Madam Speaker?
Representative Drazkowski.
Madam Speaker, I move to appeal the decision of the Speaker.
Representative Drazkowski moves to appeal the decision of the Speaker. Representative Drazkowski.
Madam Speaker, this bill is all about public safety. It's all about as far as I can tell, and I look forward to the discussion on third reading, it appears to be all about what reactions might be to a trial that happened or that is connected with events that happened in the city of Minneapolis last summer. That, Madam Speaker, is about our public safety, is about bad actors in various areas throughout our state, throughout the city of Minneapolis, throughout different cultures, throughout different groups. This, Madam Speaker, is an effort to identify an area of public safety that needs to be addressed that is perfectly germane, Madam Speaker. Antifa was in Minneapolis leading the riots last summer. That, Madam Speaker, is germane. And I don't know anything can be more germane, Madam Speaker. I'd encourage support members for my motion to appeal the decision of the Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question before the body is, shall the decision of the Speaker stand as the judgment of the House? A yes or a green vote supports the ruling of the Speaker. A no or a red vote goes against the ruling of the Speaker. All those in favor of upholding the ruling of the Speaker, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no.
No.
The motion prevails. It is the judgment of the House that the decision of the Speaker shall stand. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Johnson moves to amend House File Number 445, the second engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded DE1.
The member who I believe is from Chisago, Representative Johnson.
Speaker Hortman, members, the DE1 amendment changes the bill a little bit. First of all, or I should say most importantly, it removes the stuff that was not in the governor's proposal, the original bill that the governor sent over for us to do. It removes that, gets it more like what it should be. It removes the eligibility for reimbursement from the state agencies. As we did towards the last session, we ended up doing a supplemental budget that reimbursed the State Patrol, the DNR, and the Highway Department for the funds used during those unfortunate riots. It requires the department to wait until all jurisdictions have had an opportunity to apply for the grants of that funds, and if it exceeds the amount in that fund, everything is prorated, so everybody gets the same amount that in a prorated fashion. It requires the Department of Public Safety to add a description of the safety event, the public safety event, so we know what it is, so we could have more than one. They can happen anywhere, as we saw about 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks ago in the city of Buffalo. They can happen anywhere, not just Minneapolis, St. Paul, but anywhere in the state. And so what does it do? Removes the state's eligibility for reimbursement. The Commissioner of Public Safety, Commissioner Harrington right now, he could backfill the State Patrol with his funds and take $11 million just to put into that fund. In addition, the state agencies, or actually the agencies, should come to the State Patrol for that, because this is to help our local law enforcement agencies in our small towns and in our county sheriff's offices that are graciously sending their officers that are paid for with their property tax dollars to help the city of Minneapolis or wherever the event is. We have some of them actually up in northern Minnesota right now, up in Aiken County and across that area, dealing with the Line 3 issue. I originally, in the original amendment that I did in Ways and Means, it had the receiving jurisdictions waiting until everybody else was paid first. But law enforcement community had issues with that, and we removed that section so everybody gets paid at the same time. And finally, we added reporting to the legislature, so we know where the funds go. So we have an opportunity to look at it and understand what's going on. Right now, in order for us to find out what's going on, we have to go to a website the way this bill is written. We're spending the state's and the citizens of Minnesota's money on this. I think they should tell us where it goes. Like I say, this bill originally had some problems, minor problems that are easy to fix, and I understand why we need to do this, because these local agencies, their funding doesn't come from the state of Minnesota. It comes from the local property tax dollars that people pay. And generally, when law enforcement needs help, law enforcement goes to help, no questions asked. And only because of 12.33, when an emergency is called, is ever there any time that funding has even come up. So I would ask that the author would take this as a friendly delete-all amendment to get the bill in the shape that actually can pass not only the House, but also get through the Senate. If there might be a couple minor tweaks to it in a conference committee, possibly. Yes, but this is a bill that can pass. We can pass it right away. We have that trial coming up in less than 2.5 weeks. So I do ask for your support for this amendment.
The member from Wright, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise to support the Johnson Amendment, and there's a couple reasons why. Very simply, when we heard this bill in committee, it was very clear from Commissioner Harrington and Colonel Langer that they did not intend to use this money, so the state did not intend to use this money to backfill for DNR or State Patrol use. And yet, in the bill, in Mariani's bill and Representative Mariani's bill, it's still there. And so they still could. So his amendment, the Johnson Amendment, actually removes the ability for the state to use this money to backfill their budgets. Now, they have no need to do it, and I don't know why that would be controversial. It certainly should not be, because they've already testified to the fact that they would not be using this money. So that's number one. It also makes it absolutely crystal clear which expenses are allowed to be reimbursed by local law enforcement. Unfortunately, the amendment that was added on in committee muddles that up a little bit. It's so broad, it's very hard to understand what actually would not qualify. And I'm afraid that that money would just be used up so quickly because those categories are frankly so broad. It also fairly distributes the money back out again to all law enforcement agencies who come to render aid. So that's incredibly important. Fairness across the board. So it's not first in, gets money, and if the fund runs out, sorry, you don't get money at the end. So this amendment fixes that huge problem. And finally, just as Representative Johnson just said, it requires a report back to the legislature. This is a good governance piece. So for these reasons, that's why I would like to see the Johnson Amendment go on. This is a good governance amendment. It makes sense. It's something that law enforcement clearly supports. Let's get them from neutral to support this bill. This money is for law enforcement. So let's make sure that law enforcement do in fact support the bill. They are neutral right now. They're not opposed as they were, because the amendments that were made before made them very opposed to the bill that actually funds them. So I ask and I urge your support for the Johnson Amendment. It's a common sense amendment and it's a good governance amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Isanti, Representative Johnson.
Madam Speakers, I would request a roll call on this.
Representative Johnson requests a roll call. Are there 15 hands? I think there's only 14 members in the chamber. So if you would support a roll call, please send an email to hands@house.mn. There are enough hands for a roll call. Further discussion to the Johnson Amendment. Representative Mariani.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members. I would urge you not to adopt the Johnson Amendment. And I do have to say that I've been here for a long time. I don't think I've ever heard a delete all amendment identified as a friendly delete all amendment. I did get a little bit of, I heard something new. Members, seriously, the Johnson Amendment has, I think, a couple of pieces in it that ought to be, seriously considered. They're minor pieces, but they're not bad pieces. However, most of it is not good. First and foremost, what the amendment does is it removes all of the additions that our Public Safety Committee, right through Ways and Means, added to this bill in order to make it a complete bill, in order to make it a bill that recognizes both those First Amendment rights issues as well as ways in which we can take what is before us, what gets done, what gets implemented as a result of these mutual aid agreements under this particular reimbursement program, and learn from them in terms of enhancing our public safety. So there's no after-action review requirement here. There's also the Pinto language, Representative Pinto, that offered for the state to be able to have the ability to create opportunities with locals to protect state facilities. So think about your state universities and community colleges, et cetera. The model policy language here is gone with this amendment. Members, Representative O'Neill alluded to kind of softly, I suppose, a bill that law enforcement can't support, but in fact, they have formally written to us and urged us to pass the bill that is currently before us as a result of the amendment that I offered earlier. It's a bill that has those First Amendment model policy provision that has the after-action review provision. I also very quickly, because we're on the record here, it's really important that we're cognizant of that at all times. I really want to rebut this argument that the bill is now so muddled that you can spend it on anything you want to spend it on. Members, read the bill, page 2 and page 3. There are actually 15 lines, not 1 or 2 or 3, 15 lines that speak to eligible criteria. Things like overtime costs, logistical needs, including food and lodging, incidental supplies necessary to aid the response, backfill personnel costs incurred by the sending jurisdiction. You're going to send your officers somewhere else. You probably need to fill in, a shift in your own jurisdiction, to cover, public safety needs. Damaged or destroyed equipment, costs associated with the mitigation of public health. Members, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Indemnifying a sending jurisdiction, and then, of course, the cost for producing an after-action review. It's actually quite explicit, members. So please don't be misled by a characterization of a bill that wasn't crafted carefully to be very specific about this very specific events before us. But members, again, you know, the Johnson Amendment guts the bill before us and brings it back to an incomplete bill. And it's not my desire, it shouldn't be yours, to forward an incomplete bill at any stage of the game. And so, members, I would urge you not to adopt the Johnson Amendment.
Discussion to the Johnson Amendment. Representative Johnson.
Speaker Hortman, members, we've heard a lot of talk on this bill. And one thing that keeps coming up quite a bit is mutual aid agreements. When these public safety events that are unplanned come up, there is no mutual aid agreement for, because anybody will come at any time. I've been to a number of them that are planned, and there's agreements in place.
That's what I was saying before.
And when they're not planned, there is usually no agreements in place. Law enforcement officers go to help their brothers and sisters in this world, to help them to make sure they're safe, the public's safe, and that no damage is done. They don't care where it is, where it occurs. They go to help everybody. They don't need a mutual aid agreement because these are unplanned. There is no agreements. If mutual aid agreements are designed for things like different fairs or events in communities that are planned that the local community does not have enough manpower, where they will get mutual aid from other agencies to help for those community events, not for riots. It's totally different. So mutual aid agreements usually don't come into play on this type of events. I do ask that you do support this amendment. I believe it's a good amendment. We can get this done today and make sure that our law enforcement personnel from all our communities in any type of unplanned public safety event can help each other in other communities and not on the back of the local property taxpayers.
The member from Isanti, Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. You know, this is a really important issue, and I think one of the most screwed up processes I have seen in my 10 years here in the legislature. I'll just be honest with you about that. The governor proposed a couple of weeks ago, well, probably a little more than that now, maybe 3 weeks ago, because I think he sees on the horizon that there is a trial starting and there's a potential for some kind of uprising similar or maybe even more severe than what we had last May. And, you know, I think there's a situation where we have law enforcement agencies that are reluctant to enter into mutual aid agreements with the city of Minneapolis for whatever reason. I think one of those considerations could be money. I think there probably are other reasons. Law enforcement asked for this bill. Law enforcement wants this funding. And then what we've seen is kind of positioning, right? The Senate has passed their version of the bill. The House is going to pass their version of the bill or try to. But unfortunately, nobody's talking to each other. And that's what I mean by screwed up. We in committee offered this amendment. I want to thank Representative Johnson, and I want to thank Representative Garofalo, Representatives O'Neill and Novotny, and I'm probably going to miss some. I probably shouldn't mention names. But our team worked on this, and you know, there's a role that you can play when you're in the minority. Sometimes you're just the loyal opposition and you pull the pins out of the hand grenades and you roll them across the floor to the majority and you just blow things up and you're against everything. or you can step up and be leaders. And so on this particular issue, our caucus made a decision, and I think you're going to see that repeated a lot this session. We stepped up and showed leadership. We offered this amendment in the Ways and Means Committee, and this amendment is not way over here to the right, not way over here to the left. This is almost the governor's bill with just a couple of minor changes. We said, what do we think is the most reasonable thing? What do we think should pass? What do we think should be in law? I think there's a lot of people that would say, you know, we shouldn't help Minneapolis. Minneapolis cut their police department, and we shouldn't help them. If they're not going to help themselves, why are we stepping in and supplying funding? You know, I think there's an argument to be made there, right? I think there's an argument to make that the city of Minneapolis isn't making the best decisions for its own public safety. I don't care about that. I mean, I do care about it, but in this situation, if there are riots in the city of Minneapolis, if they can't step up and provide the police force necessary and the response necessary to keep their citizens safe, then we have to and we will do it, period. And that's why my caucus supports this. And of all the proposals that are on the table, I challenge you to actually read this and see what it does. This is the most reasonable one. This is the one that doesn't add anything else in, that doesn't say, hey, this is some needed funding, this is an opportunity for us to glue some unrelated provision onto the bill. Nope. This just does what we should do in this situation. Do we always like it? No. Do we always sometimes think, boy, I wish Minneapolis would have handled this different, or boy, do I wish the governor would have sent in the National Guard a little sooner? Sure. But in this situation, we need to make sure that we do the right thing. And this language is the right thing. Forget who brought it. Forget whose amendment it is. Forget what party it's from. Just read the words. Read the proposal. Because I'll bet you, if we get a bill to the governor's desk, this is what it's going to look like at the end of the day. So why do we do this thing where we start with one proposal over here and one proposal over there? When we're talking about keeping Minnesotans safe and public safety, why are we adding on unrelated provisions? We need some reforms in law enforcement. You know what? Drop a bill to do some reforms in law enforcement, give it a hearing, and if it's the right thing to do, it'll pass and get signed into law. But endanger funding for keeping Minnesotans safe, to provide dollars that'll go to fund that law enforcement, to make sure that they're there and we have the response necessary, that's not the time and it's not the place. It's been one of my biggest frustrations about this place, has been that we tag on unrelated provisions. And instead of just coming out and saying, hey, this is what we need to do together and this is where we need to be, we position ourselves back in the corner of a boxing ring, and believe me, while we're back there, we put our gloves on and we get ready for a fight. Why fight? About what? Providing $35 million so that we can make sure, and it's not a guarantee that it'll get spent, if there isn't an event, there won't be an expenditure. But if there is, we need to make sure we've supplied the resources necessary to keep Minnesotans safe, without question. I said to you that law enforcement asked for this bill. They asked for the concept. They didn't ask for this bill. When the House passed this bill out of committee, the law enforcement community was against it. Think about that. We've got a bill or a concept that the law enforcement community has approached us and said, hey, we really need this to happen. And the House Democrats put a bill through their committee that the law enforcement community didn't support. And in the next committee, the majority party, I shouldn't have said Democrats. Here I am using partisan terms, and this should be the least partisan issue of all. I apologize for that. And I recognize that I did it. But so in the next committee, law enforcement gets to neutral on a bill that they want, that they asked for. We're so aspirational in this chamber that the best that we can do is get to neutral, and they're still neutral today. They are still neutral today. Their letter right now, dated today, it's got Hortman's name at the top. She distributed it to you. It's up here if you don't have it. I'm sure it's in your email inbox. In the third paragraph, while we do not support Chair Mariani's First Amendment package to the Safe Account proposal, we are neutral on his latest proposed amendment, which is now in the bill. Neutral. So when it comes to keeping Minnesotans safe and providing funding for law enforcement on a proposal that they asked us for, the best we can do is get them to neutral. So we have stepped up, and we are offering you something that I guarantee, if somebody isn't twisting your arm, would get 120 votes probably out of this chamber. This is all, please don't tell anybody back home. This is almost the governor's proposal. I'm joking a little bit about that. But you know what? Law enforcement asked the governor for this. It's the right thing to do. Whether you agree with the politics or not of what has happened in Minneapolis, or whether you think the governor responded in the right way or the wrong way, erase it. Forget about it. Because in 2 weeks, there's going to be a trial starting, and we could have an event equal to or greater than what happened last May. And I personally don't want to see that happen again. And I know that, unfortunately, sometimes you got to do something that you don't always want to do, and you wish you didn't have to do, but we have to. There's no question. And that's what leadership is. It's not always easy. I also am keenly aware that there are concerns about trust with law enforcement, and that some of these communities have been really had a terse relationship with law enforcement. I'm sensitive to that. But we're not going to make people in this state feel more safe with less law enforcement. We have to deal with those issues separately of this. And I'll certainly help you work on those issues, because I want to make sure that every Minnesotan feels that law enforcement is there to protect them and to serve them. Because I do feel that way. But I'm very conscious of the fact that not everybody does feel that way. This bill is not the place to accomplish that. We did some of it last year. I think there are ideas about doing more. Fine, we can have those conversations. This is not the place. This literally is a bare bones, full funding, get the money out the door, get it in the hands of our local law enforcement when they respond to a needed incident, so that they can help keep Minnesotans safe. When I talked about the screwed up process, we offered this bill in committee. It didn't get adopted. And I know there's some dynamics going on between different factions of the chamber, and that's somewhat normal. But I have to put mine aside and say, as much as I don't know that people in my cities and my counties should be paying for law enforcement in Minneapolis, I'm also keenly aware that this isn't just for Minneapolis. If there are riots and protests on Line 3, this may be the mechanism that provides the funding for local law enforcement so that they can be equipped to respond. We offered this in committee, rejected. We brought it as a minority report here on the House floor when the committee report was here, rejected. This literally is the most reasonable proposal of all of them out there, and I'm talking about it right now because I want everybody to read it. I'm surprised at the number of people that hadn't read this and didn't know about it. Representative Johnson and others worked really hard on this. This isn't an ideological line up in our corner, put our boxing gloves on. This is a real proposal, end of the day, what needs to go to the governor's desk to get signed. Use it as a starting point. I understand the Senate's going to want to have some language in this as well. That was last week when we did that minority report. Bill came to the House floor with a neutral recommendation from the law enforcement community. And I appreciate Representative Winkler came over to spoke to me while we were here on the House floor. That was the first conversations between the majority and the minority party. That bill ended up getting tabled because we wanted to work on it a little bit more. Today it got brought off the table. No work happened in the interim, not a bit of work, no conversations. I spoke to Speaker Hortman on the phone last night, just asked her what was likely to come. I think we had a very good conversation. I don't think she even knew at that time whether this bill was coming up today. But no meaningful conversations about what are the minority's concerns about what's in the bill, what can we do to move this forward. 2 o'clock today, I got another call from the Speaker. And I appreciate, and I know that the Speaker's been doing a lot of other things. I'm not saying these things to diminish that there wasn't an effort. But what I am saying is we can do better. And this is really an important issue. And I'll be very honest with you. I feel like, this is a little naive statement for me to make, because I don't know exactly what you've been doing and what wrestling you've been doing within your own caucuses. But I feel with the effort that I've put in on this and the phone calls that I've been making, that I've actually been trying to pass this as much or more than anybody else. And why would I care? I'm in the minority. This isn't my community, it's Minneapolis. Do you know why? Because it's the right thing to do. It's incredibly difficult for a Speaker of the House to bring a bill up and to allow a Republican amendment to go on to that bill and let it pass out of the House. It's divisive within your own caucus. It almost never happens. It's for whatever reason, it's seen as a sign of weakness around here. It shouldn't be. It should be a sign that we're doing what we know we need to do the right thing. I kind of know the answer. It'll likely be a party line vote. But I'm just going to make a personal plea with you. And I'm very, very sincere about the conversation that I'm having right now. In fact, I reached out earlier today to one of the members of the Posse Caucus. I'm not going to name the name, because I wanted to have a conversation, and I feel like I have a little connection with that member. And we're going to meet later today and have a conversation. I want to understand what's going on in these communities and how we can be helpful to actually get something. I want to make sure the help is there the way they need it so that they can feel safe. And I'll be very honest, I don't understand the dynamics. But I will tell you, this is a clean bill. This is literally almost exactly what the governor's proposing. The only difference here, I think, Brian can correct me if I'm wrong, we're not letting state agencies dip into this money. We're reserving it for local law enforcement agencies, so sheriff's departments, police departments from surrounding communities that would come in and do mutual aid. And some of it, I think, can go to the city of Minneapolis if they have severe overtime. I think only a portion. But that's the right thing to do. And the only reason I say that, we made that one correction from the governor's bill because we just feel like we budget directly for our state agencies, the State Patrol, the Department of Public Service or Safety, You know, we budget for those directly. We appropriate that money directly. So we didn't think it needed to be in this bill. We can have that conversation separately. We really wanted to show our law enforcement community that this money was reserved for them in the event that they respond to one of these states of emergency somewhere in the state. I know that law enforcement supports this language over the language that's in this underlying bill. You know, there's no letter here because I think they don't want to take a position on this language. But they are supporting the governor's language. This is the closest version in the legislature to what the governor is proposing. This is real leadership. This is a real solution. This is end of the discussion, middle of the road. This is compromise. This is really the right thing to do. And I know how incredibly, incredibly hard it is in this chamber to do the right thing. And I'm going to say, I'm really disappointed that folks didn't pay more attention to this at every step in the process and that there wasn't more engagement. And I am absolutely convinced that if this were allowed to go on the bill and could get out of here, this would go out with 120 votes. So I want to thank Representative Johnson. I want to thank Representative Winkler. I want to thank the Speaker. I want to thank everybody who's trying to make this happen. But my gosh, we can do better. I don't think the votes actually exist to get this bill off the floor today. And it will be an incredible setback for the funding for law enforcement if that doesn't happen. So let's do the right thing and let's put this amendment on the bill and let's send it out. And I know that some members are not going to vote for it. I get that. That's okay. But you have my commitment, and I'm not just putting that in words right now here on the House floor. I put it into action earlier today when I reached out to one of the members of the Posse Caucus because I trust that person. And I want to understand what the dynamics are in their district and in their community so that I can be helpful. Those are the conversations that need to happen. And unfortunately, I think we fell short in engaging the minority in passing a bill. And I do realize that that wasn't intentional. I know there were other dynamics going on. But I think the process that led to where we are right now is a textbook example of how not to do it. And again, I don't say that to insult anyone. It was not intentional, but let's take a pause. If we're not going to adopt this language, let's take a pause. Let's get leaders around a table and let's talk about what we can actually do to help this community. Because believe it or not, I actually care and want to make sure that what happened in Minneapolis last May does not happen again, either in that community or any other community in this state, or in this country for that matter. And while we work together to ease the tensions that caused that, and we'll do that separately from this bill, and we need to continue to do that, now is the time to act. And if we don't do it now with this amendment, let's hit the pause button, let's have some conversations, and rather than create a larger divide, we can certainly come back Monday with clearer hearts and clearer eyes and a clearer vision and pass something off this floor. So members, I'm going to plead with you, forget about our parties, forget about where it came from, read the language. I hope I gave you enough time here talking so you could read it. This is a real proposal. There's no gotcha language. There's no added anything. There's nothing ideological in this. And I think a lot of people have stepped up to show some courage to say, even though This isn't my community, and it isn't going to directly benefit my constituents. I'm willing to stick my neck out because this is the right thing to do for Minneapolis. So I'm going to ask each and every one of you today on the floor, please, let's adopt this amendment and let's do the right thing. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, we are on adoption of a DE amendment that would completely change the nature of this bill. It isn't an amendment that is as unreasonable as what we saw coming from the Minnesota Senate this week on this issue, and it is a good faith effort to try to be constructive. But I want to be very clear about what's in front of us today. We have a very difficult bill, a bill that is difficult because on the one hand, it funds law enforcement and is supported by law enforcement. On the other hand, it provides law enforcement support to communities who have a troubled history with law enforcement, and we are in a very dangerous time with our ability to move forward together with any kind of public safety related to the Chauvin trials. It cannot be lost on us why those trials are taking place, and that's what makes this bill so difficult. To his great credit, Representative Mariani has managed to fashion a compromise that today has the support of law enforcement groups and has the support of many of the legislators whose districts would be most affected by this situation. I want to read the letter from the law enforcement groups, the paragraph that was missing. They say, "Today, we are specifically urging members of the Minnesota House of Representatives to pass the latest version of the Safe Account Bill as amended, which would include a First Amendment policy requirement and continue discussions with the Minnesota Senate and all stakeholders on a final version." So what is before us today, members, is a bill that will help make sure that the peace is kept in Minneapolis and St. Paul, that First Amendment protections will be honored, and that law enforcement supports. If we put the De1 Amendment on the bill, we no longer have that bill. So members, I would ask you to vote no on the amendment. When we get to the bill itself on third reading and final passage, we will have a bill supported by law enforcement aimed at helping Minneapolis and St. Paul and surrounding communities stay safe. It is a path of compromise that is very difficult to navigate, but we are doing it today in the Minnesota House, and if we can pass this bill, we will continue on the path to a compromise that can work for everyone, or at least as many people as are able to embrace this bill as possible. So members, I ask you to vote no on this amendment. We need to move forward to third reading and to address the bill as supported by both the Minnesota House majority and law enforcement.
Any further discussion on the Johnson Amendment? Seeing none, a roll call having been requested, the clerk will take the roll on the Johnson Amendment. Those members who are voting remotely, please vote.
Who's not here today? Everyone. Everyone's here? All 134. But we can't.
Will the clerk call the names of those members who have not voted yet?
So if they get past them, on the, if they call for Burkle, he doesn't answer.
Burkle. Burkle. Davids.
Aye. Burkle votes aye.
Burkle, aye. Davids.
David's aye.
Davids, aye. Eklund.
Eklund, no.
Eklund, no. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Houseman.
Houseman, no.
Houseman, no. Jordan.
Jordan, no.
Jordan, no. Keeler.
Keeler, no.
Keeler, no. Keel.
Keel, aye.
Keel, aye. Creshaw.
Grisha, aye.
Creshaw, aye. Mariani.
Mariani, no.
Mariani, no. Markwart.
Markwart, no.
Markwart, no. Mason.
Mason, no.
Mason, no. McDonald.
McDonald, aye.
McDonald, aye. Nash.
Nash votes aye.
Nash, aye. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, no.
Pryor, no. Scott.
Scott, aye.
Scott, aye. Thompson.
Thompson, no.
Thompson, no. Zhang Jie.
Hyung Jae, no.
Zhang Jie, no.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 63 ayes and 71 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Drazkowski moves to amend House File Number 445, the second engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A29.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker and members, the 829 amendment focuses on exactly how we pay for mutual aid that is required for police protection between cities here in Minnesota. There's no need for us to create a new account with an additional $35 million, certainly not for a city that already receives $150 million of statewide taxpayers' money for local government aid each biennium. For the city that brags about how many parks they have and how many parks per capita, parks per square mile, and they lead the planet in that department, Madam Speaker. They certainly have money to pay for their police force if they would only prioritize things properly. So, Madam Speaker, members, the A29 amendment simply provides that if mutual aid is required, like is being discussed in this bill and discussion on the floor, that instead of taking more money from the taxpayers of Minnesota, we would use the existing dedicated LGA for that community, deduct it from their LGA payment, and put it into the safe account pot instead of new money being extracted from the taxpayers of Minnesota to pay for incompetent leadership in the city of Minneapolis. I encourage your support, and Madam Speaker, I'd ask for a roll call on the amendment.
Representative Drazkowski requests a roll call. There are not 15 hands in the chamber. Members, you have 60 seconds to send an email to hands@house.mn. There are not 15 hands. There will not be a roll call. The member from Hennepin, Representative Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise under a point of order.
Please state your point of order.
I rise under Rule 3.21, motions and propositions must be germane. After reviewing the bill and the amendment, this is not germane. It expands the scope of the bill substantially. As we know, the bill we're discussing creates a statewide account to reimburse peace officers. The amendment would expand and do a new section related to taxation and local government aid. In no place does this bill consider LGA or tax policy. We could have a debate about LGA. I haven't looked it up, but I would bet that the communities in Representative Drazkowski's district receive more LGA per capita than Minneapolis. But this is not the bill to have that debate. LGA is not, or tax policy isn't contemplated in this bill, and so I'd urge you to find this amendment out of order under Rule 3.21.
I reviewed the amendment. I reviewed the bill. I find the point of order well taken. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Drazkowski moves to amend House File Number 445, the second engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded DE4.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, nothing's germane today, Madam Speaker. The DE4 amendment deletes the language in the bill and simply replaces it with the Government Leadership and Responsibility Act. And what it says is that cities in Minnesota are responsible to take care of the police protection of their own city. And it says that if there is need for mutual aid, the city, as I think most of our 853 cities in the state of Minnesota would do, if not nearly all but maybe one or two, would pay for their police protection out of their general operating budget, which is property tax money largely, Madam Speaker and members, in addition to local government aid and enterprise accounts and other forms of income, but largely it's property tax money. So what this DE amendment provides is that if indeed the unit of government doesn't have enough property tax money and did a poor job of planning for the priorities in their budgeting, which should include police, fire, ambulance, roads, and the things that a local government is supposed to take care of first before the niceties are entertained by that particular community, that if indeed they have to raise property taxes and raise the levy the next year because of poor planning, poor priorities, and poor leadership, that the Truth in Taxation notice would have an addendum to it that would say, and I'll read it for your benefit, Madam Speaker and members, this property tax increase is to cover a shortfall due to the failure of the name of the mayor and the name of the jurisdiction's elected board or city council members to govern the name of the jurisdiction responsibly, and the names of the jurisdiction's state legislators and names of the governor to properly exercise the leadership necessary to govern Minnesota responsibly. Madam Speaker and members, what we have here is not a shortage of money. What we have is a shortage of priorities, a dereliction of duty in leadership, and lack of responsibility in properly funding and prioritizing the proper priorities of local government. We're going to have, after this biennium is done, Madam Speaker, there's going to be over $47 billion of state money paid out for our budget. That includes over $500 million of local government aid, of which the city of Minneapolis ends up with $150 million of that $500 million. So what this says is that the people who are being irresponsible and not properly leading their community members, we expect if there is problems like are being described, identified, and observed in the city of Minneapolis, those legislators in Minneapolis, the governor, the mayor of Minneapolis, the city council members need to get their heads screwed on right and start leading. The Democrat leadership for the last 50 years in the city of Minneapolis has destroyed its ability to govern on the behalf of the people. They can't even properly protect their people. Madam Speaker, it was in 2 days before the last election that I read in the paper that it was being contemplated, not only contemplated, but activity was happening in the city of Minneapolis in which the workers in Minneapolis were again boarding up the buildings in the city of Minneapolis in anticipation that, according to the Democrats, the message would be the wrong person got elected. Madam Speaker and members, this is poor leadership, poor budgeting, poor priorities. We need the people to know when their leaders are not leading, are not being responsible, and are being derelict in their duty. This would communicate to the people, in this case in the city of Minneapolis or any other city, when their leaders are failing to lead. I encourage your support, and Madam Speaker, I would ask for a roll call on the amendment.
Representative Drazkowski requests a roll call. There are only 14 members in the chamber, so members, you have a minute to send an email to hands@house.mn. There are not 15 hands. There will not be a roll call. Discussion to the Drazkowski amendment.
Madam Speaker, point of order.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Edelson.
Madam Speaker, under 3.21 of the House rules, an amendment must not introduce a new subject. The DE4 introduces a new subject addressing taxes, which is not in the underlying bill. Therefore, I think this amendment should be ruled out of order.
I reviewed the amendment and the bill, and I find the point of order well taken. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 445, as amended.
Third reading as amended. Discussion to the bill as amended. The member from Candy Ojai, Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Today, we're going to be voting on a bill to address what I believe, and this is what I had said to Chair Mariani a week or so ago in the last week. This is probably, it's certainly the most seminal moment in a pretty wild time that I've been in office. This is my 7th year, and we've seen anything from construction here to avian influenza to all sorts of surprises. And I think what happens going forward in Minnesota with what's about to happen with the trials in a couple weeks is going to change the outcome of Minnesota for a long time to come. And this bill largely addresses, if you will, the legislatures, the government of Minnesota. This is our best way that we can address this. I think there will be some other things coming, but this is certainly probably the largest. And what I've witnessed here in the past week has been, to say the least, disappointing. What I've witnessed here on the House floor tonight has been extremely disappointing. I can be disappointed in games that are played, but what I'm shocked at is we are dealing with something that is incredibly large that's going to be witnessed by the whole world, and that's not hyperbole. And in this House floor, in the body language, in the things that are said. There's ambivalence. There's, well, we know where this is going to go. Statements like the leadership should get together and just come up with something that we can all vote on. And as I was listening to this stuff, I was looking at the staff that work in here, clerk's office, sergeant at arms, IT. I was thinking about the freshmen who are here who, just like all of us when we were elected as freshmen, we came in here wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, wanting to make a difference for our community, for in the state of Minnesota. I look at these people in the room, and I don't know what they're thinking. I know that if I was in their shoes, I'd go home at night, and I'd really question sometimes with how the body behaves on some of this stuff. They have to question why they're doing what they're doing. There's so much that could be said on this. I'm not going to waste people's time with listening to me drone on and on. You get enough of that already in this room. I just want you to note that's from my heart, and I want to make one point to the bill itself. Representative Doubt, you had said that the Johnson DE was quite possibly the most reasonable bill before us, and people should have read it. I really question if people read my amendment. Now, I know that I'm in the new House Republican caucus, and so I'm, ridiculed, disdained, disliked, set aside, marginalized, quite frankly, because I believe that I've shown that I have a mind of my own. Sometimes I question that around here. But if you had read my amendment was by and large the Johnson Amendment. But the only significant difference was, and unless it was changed, I don't think it was, but unless the amendment was changed, Johnson Amendment was changed since the last time I saw it, I just did agree that the police should have some form of reporting. But I didn't think it should be an independent source, but I had a requirement to report, because if people are going to be spending the taxpayers' dollars, we ought to know how it goes to. And I talked to my law enforcement, as I said earlier. They didn't think that was unreasonable. A lot of work, but certainly if they're going to be getting paid for the work they should do, they should justify it. By and large, my amendment was the Johnson Amendment. By and large, it was everything that Representative Doubt spoke about as being reasonable. It had one significant difference. It was, let's take care of the problem before us. And as Representative Doubt said, if we have to talk about policies with police departments, we can talk about that later. I agree with that. If we want to talk about some sort of ongoing spending that we need to do, it's amazing, because this year we have witnessed things that us in our lifetime will probably never see anything as big as this. I certainly hope not. But it was certainly what we view as a one-time event, and what we're doing on the floor here today is to address something that we hope doesn't continually happen. And yet, in a way, we're presuming that it's going to happen, because we're going to fund the ability to protect the people of Minnesota against ongoing behavior like this. And I have to say, members, that if we have ongoing problems like what we witnessed in Minneapolis last summer, or the people that have these concerns or worries about threats here or in Washington, at what point do we look at the leaders ourselves, look at ourselves, and say, maybe we're the ones that are doing something wrong? Maybe this angst and anger of the people out there is because the people that they look to lead and guide them aren't listening to them and are doing the wrong thing. So what do? We put another layer of government on top. We put another layer. I'll never forget the image of inauguration. It was amazing. I'm a visual thinker, and it was amazing to me. You have inauguration in the United States of America. What a glorious picture. The peaceful transfer of power. And the people were barricaded off, probably 300 yards, 400 yards, quarter mile. They're barricaded off with 20, 30,000 troops. And then bulletproof glass in front of who? The elite, the leaders of our nation. And they're saying, well, we need this to keep the people from coming after us. That's on us, members. That's not on them. And now we have a bill before us, and I thought the Johnson Amendment was okay. My one big issue with it was that it was ongoing. We grew government. Conservative members of the legislature that voted for that, you grew government. Not just in spending, but the number of employees, the scope of what government does. And here's another thing that happened. When this gets passed, and I agree, once we get out of the Senate, we may not be dealing with this, but we can only vote on what we have now. We can only vote on it. Anyone in this room, in this legislature, that has had a problem with the governor gaining all the power in the state of Minnesota, this bill that we're going to be voting on and another amendment just gave him more power. It gives him the power. Now it's through incentive of funding, but we know how it works around here. Today it's incentive of funding, then you're kind of compelled to do something, and then suddenly it's regulated, and then suddenly you have to do it or else sort of thing. And this bill certainly has many little pieces in it that I think that's going to happen anyway. But now we just gave the governor the ability to get officers that have independent jurisdictions, which is what makes law enforcement so great in Minnesota. We gave the governor a special police force now, or we will when this passes off the floor. We give him a special police force that he can essentially call up and direct to his decisions, his whims. And it's kind of amazing to me because in the past this would have been theoretical, like a what if a governor could do this or could do that? Well, members, we've had a track record for the last year or so of a governor who has said he is going to take those powers and he is going to ram it down the people's throat, and we do what he says, or he starts calling us things like a cancer, which he said a couple weeks ago. He's very obviously not listening to the people out in my area, in my district, because they keep saying, what can I do, what can I do? And I said, write the governor. And they said, he isn't answering, or he keeps saying things that belittles me. And I'm tired of it. I'm personally tired of it myself. But members, that's what we're doing. We're growing government, and we're going to empower the governor, the chief executive of Minnesota, all the more here today. And then I go back to my original point that we're doing all this in a rush. If you want to talk about getting together and talking about these things, let's get together and talk about this. Not 2 or 3 leaders in a room hammering out how we can make this work to where enough of the outside interest groups give their endorsement of it, give their stamp of approval. Members, think about each and every person that is in your district that you meet with, whether it's just the grandma down the street, a business owner, anybody. Just think of the people that you meet with on the street, calling them, door knocking, or anything like that, and say, how am I best representing them in this? Now, by the way, there are some people in this room that do believe that, and I don't want to question that this doesn't do that for those people. But it sure doesn't seem like we're having that conversation. It seems like what we're doing is we're going through our typical process. Everyone can leave here with the talking points that they need. Everyone can leave here feeling like they are satisfied and getting what they had to get done today, but we're not thinking about the people of Minnesota. And members, I'm sorry. I'm sick of it. I'm just absolutely sick of it, and I don't know what to do about it. I'm going to keep fighting for it. I think you should know that I really mean what I'm saying, because I didn't even know we were doing this bill today, because in the process, I couldn't even be told that we were doing this bill until I came in here. I had to go beg and look for my own amendments. And it'll come back to me, well, you need to be prepared, Representative Miller, for every single thing. Come on. So I certainly hope that after this, as we move forward on this seminal moment in the state of Minnesota, that we can start doing the things that the people of Minnesota want. The real people of the people of Minnesota. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members. I share some of the same frustrations that Representative Miller shared. Our first response always seems to be a reflexive one about we need to spend money to say we did something. And certainly this is what the governor is doing, when the governor simply needs to get up and look in the mirror. Members, the Minnesota Senate did a study after the riots in Minneapolis, 55 pages. I don't think the House did one. Chair Mariani or somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the only such study that's been done in a summary of what was learned. The key findings. The riots in Minneapolis took place May 26th, between May 26th and June 10th. They caused the death of at least 3 Minnesotans injury to both citizens and law enforcement. Secondly, the people involved was primarily Minnesotans from the metropolitan area. Thirdly, the Minnesota National Guard was not fully mobilized until 4 days after the first building was burned. And I understand that dozens and dozens of buildings were burned and thousands received damage. Fourthly, Minnesota law enforcement stated that if the mayor of Minneapolis had allowed them to use non-lethal force to stop rioters, that they could have held the 3rd precinct, the police building that was burned in Minneapolis. Fifth, following the full mobilization of the Minnesota National Guard on Saturday, May 30th, 2020, order was restored. So the mayor of Minneapolis and the governor of Minnesota stood around and looked and didn't want to offend their liberal constituencies, the Democrats in Minneapolis. So they stood around irresponsibly, derelict in their duty, while Minneapolis burned down. While the rest of us were wondering very early on, where is the National Guard? They stood around and stood around and stood around for 4 days. Sixth item, morale within the law enforcement community and the community at large has suffered greatly due to the actions and inactions of Governor Walz, Mayor Frey, and the Minneapolis City Council. And as was pointed out earlier, about 200 Minneapolis police officers now have left their position, a full 1/4 of the force in the city of Minneapolis. Some of that because the radical leftist Minneapolis City Council decided to try to defund them back in December. The last item, arrests of those responsible were not made in a timely or consistent manner. With the failure to prosecute and hold rioters accountable, criminal activity continues to increase over the 5-year average. And members, I asked research to pull out some numbers. What type of criminal activity have we seen in Minneapolis? Well, from June of this last year until February 1st, there were 68 homicides in Minneapolis. The same time period a year earlier, 40 homicides. Over 50% increase in homicides in that time period in the city of the first class that's right close to here at St. Paul. Also, from January 1st of 2020 through February 15th of 2021, I asked how many police officer involved shootings and how many fatalities in those shootings. 4 police officer involved shootings, 1 fatality. While that happened, members, 86 other residents of Minneapolis died from homicide in the city of Minneapolis. Where, members, are our eyes? Some want to politicize the police and point fingers at them, which is irresponsible to simply point fingers at them when people are dying all over the place in that city. Very frustrating for many of us members. So the Star Tribune recently reported just last week that now the city of Minneapolis is spending $6.4 million on additional funding for police. Maybe, Madam Speaker, the city of Minneapolis is starting to see the light. Unfortunately, there's still a movement. 3 Democrat city council members want to continue the effort to defund the police or rename it or denature it so the police aren't enforcing the law the way that they have in the past and has worked effectively. Instead, they're doing something that's some sort of referendum called Yes for Minneapolis to redefine and denature the Minneapolis Police Department, led, Madam Speaker, by a $500,000 grant from billionaire George Soros, the godfather of funding for Democrats. People in Minneapolis need to pay attention to what is going on around them. You are lacking leadership. Your leadership in your city and in your state is failing you. It's time to hold them accountable. Not only did the governor and the mayor sit around while Minneapolis burned, we actually have other examples. One of our members, Madam Speaker, one of our newest members, back on the 15th of August, was in the city of Hugo, Minnesota, at a rally.
Representative Drazkowski.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Representative Winkler, state your point of order.
Madam Speaker, Representative Drazkowski is bringing personalities into this debate. He's done so on more than one occasion already in this speech. I would ask you to rule these comments out of order.
Representative Drazkowski, our House rules and custom and usage forbid the use of personalities in debate. Please confine your remarks to the subject matter before the body and the merits of the legislation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, I will not mention any names in this, but this was a speech that was given in Hugo, Minnesota.
Representative Drazkowski, you can invoke personalities without stating someone's name. So if you invoke personalities, you will be out of order.
Madam Speaker, are we not able to talk about statements that other members of this body have spoken?
Representative Drazkowski, I would remind you that personalities are not at issue. The merits of the legislation is what is before the body.
The merits of legislation, Madam Speaker, and my point is this, that leadership is not happening. We have people making statements in this state, and we have people that are making decisions and indecisions in this state that are heading us in the wrong direction. And the example I have, Madam Speaker, the statement was, don't run now, looking at some teenage girls in the driveway.
Representative
racist white
Drazkowski,
people.
you need to confine your remarks to the bill before the House.
Madam Speaker, members, some want to make this discussion around, again, a city of Minneapolis that some are going to characterize somehow is victimized or helpless, just as liberals do regularly. Fortunately, however, the people of Minnesota realize that the woe is me coming from and responding to our state's problems, our state's problem city, just doesn't cut it anymore. We can't have politicians sitting on the sidelines while they are supposed to be there to act. Madam Speaker, the governor has access to the National Guard in our state whenever he desires he needs it in order to protect the people of our state. Our Constitution directly gives him that authority and responsibility. Unfortunately, it was not exercised back in late May and June until very late, until after the damage was done. We also have a mayor that is a codependent in this effort. And we have members of this legislature, Madam Speaker, who instead of helping lead in their community and bring the rule of law to be followed, are creating further division and further efforts to say that they or their city is somehow victimized. We don't need dereliction of duty, Madam Speaker. We don't need irresponsibility. We don't need incompetence, and we don't need any more ineptness in the leadership in our state. We don't need any more money because we need leadership. We need those people to step forward and do their job. Madam Speaker, one Minnesota doesn't want to pay for two incompetent politicians. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Isanti, Representative Johnson.
Speaker Hortman, members, First of all, I want to thank Chair Mariani for bringing House File 445 forward. The original bill brought forward by the governor was not perfect, just needed a few changes to make it reasonable. And if we had had that bill right now, even the governor's original amendment, original bill, it'd probably move out of here with over 100 votes. Now, the reason this is even being talked about is the fact that the city of Minneapolis has made a call for help with the court trial coming up in less than 3 weeks. Now, I know there's many issues on this bill on both sides of the aisle. Some don't want to bail out the city of Minneapolis, while others do not want to provide funding for law enforcement at all. But as we unfortunately witnessed last week, major unplanned public safety events can happen anywhere. And I'm still praying for the people of Buffalo and for the victims. One of the first things listed in our Constitution is the government is instituted for the security, benefit, and protection of the people. And that's not just some of the people, but that's all of the people of this state. So what's the main purpose of this bill? And how can the $35 million be used? For the safety of all the law-abiding citizens in Minnesota. In this bill, funds can only be used for a Chapter 12 event, invoked by the governor, like it was this past spring, or by the local unit of government. We might want to revisit that issue because if a local unit of government declares emergency under Chapter 12, if these funds should be available or not, or should it be one that only the governor can do? Because although under Chapter 12.33, the city of Minneapolis was required by law to pay those who assisted with the riots, and that's under, like I said, under Chapter 12.33, because the governor declared an emergency. The city of Minneapolis did not. The governor did, and because the governor declared that, the city of Minneapolis was responsible for all the bills. Now, over the past few weeks, I've been in contact with many chief law enforcement officers across the great state of Minnesota about this bill, and I want to thank them for their honesty and the conversations about the issue. There was one reoccurring theme in the conversations I had, and they are concerned about the lack of respect and appreciation for the difficult work the Minneapolis Police Department officers do in attempting to dismantle and defund the Minneapolis Police Department. Now, other concerns dealt with the lack of command structure during the riots after the unfortunate death of George Floyd. And there's one that really stuck out to me, and that was one sheriff who said, "Why should I send my officers to assist Minneapolis Police Department when the county attorney does not do his duty and charge anyone that is arrested for looting, burning, or assaulting my officers?" Now, that is a good question, and a major concern for a lot of these law enforcement, chief law enforcement officers when they debate on sending people to help. Now, some will respond to the call for help if they have men available, but if the State Patrol or the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office asks for assistance in Minneapolis, most would send as many officers as they can. They do not want their officers under control of the Minneapolis Police Department, nor the mayor or the city council of Minneapolis. Now, we also have the issue of a number of departments that are already sending officers to assist with the protests on the pipeline. And it should be noted that all those officers had extensive training, not only on the First Amendment assembly policies, but also what they have to do while respecting everyone's constitutional rights. I myself have gone through that training a few times in my career in law enforcement. What we need to make sure, but what we need to do is we need to make sure that the funds will go to local law enforcement agencies that are willing to help out other agencies during a major, unplanned public safety event. These funds would backfill the responding jurisdictions from using local property tax dollars to supplement other jurisdictions. Unfortunately, this bill currently does not do that, and its funds be used to backfill the state agencies, in which a supplemental budget request we can if we feel it's needed, and it's also at the in the current governor's budget request as well for this coming year. We also need to make sure that the Department of Public Safety that is responsible for these funds report to this body and the Senate how and where these funds are spent, since they can receive $1.75 million for managing the applications from this account. Again, unfortunately, no report is required. While it is important, why is this bill important? During the riots, the Minneapolis Police Department was pretty much at full strength, and they were not able to contain the violence. Today, they're down over 200 officers, while Chief Arradondo requested a couple of years ago an increase of 400 officers. So the total, from what he really needs, they're 600 officers short. While the City Council and the Mayor Fry have a duty to keep the citizens of Minneapolis safe, they had cut their police department, but currently have, as of Friday, increased their budget to try to help out, because they realize they've had a spike in crime, and it's law enforcement that deals with it. Unfortunately, the majority in this body decided not to put some accountability on these funds. They could be used, these funds could be used during an unplanned public safety event. The original version of this bill was called by a reporter during a press conference I was at as a slush fund because of the lack of accountability. That's why I tried to put some accountability in this bill, but unfortunately it wasn't adopted. But instead, what was put in this bill, different than the governor's request, it added a bunch of policies that were not supported by law enforcement, and I even heard was not even supported by the governor because he wanted a clean bill. What does it do? It also adds that the receiving agency can receive from the account, including costs associated with emergency management, response and recovery planning, mitigation of public health threats, and associated costs within the community, and costs incurred in producing an after-action review and report. Well, these funds were supposed to be used to help responding law enforcement agencies backfill their expenses so the local property tax owners in the outside jurisdictions do not have to pay the bill. Now, it's interesting on the after-action review. I've been involved in a number of very serious incidences and in some minor ones. But I can tell you this, every time there's a major incident, law enforcement does an after-action review. Why? Because they want to make sure they did things right. What can work better? They're always looking for best practices and what works, what doesn't work, and they talk amongst each other to make sure that everybody does things the proper way. Now, it also requires a model policy. That also required a model policy. And what was it? Public assembly response. I like what law enforcement calls it better in their personnel policies. Oh yes, they already have these in their personnel policies. It's called First Amendment assembly. In the First Amendment of our Constitution, we have a constitutional right to peaceful assembly. Law enforcement has no problem with that. And we've had a lot of peaceful assemblies outside this beautiful building, which I hope we can have again shortly. But I ask you one thing. If you're peacefully assembling, are you walking up to a law enforcement officer who's there to protect you, and you start screaming obscenities and everything else in his face? Are you peacefully assembling? I say no. Nobody, law enforcement officers, you, me, the public, they do not deserve to have people screaming in their faces. I was watching some of the video of the riots, and even when they were calling them peaceful at the time, I was watching people walk up to law enforcement officers who was there to try to make sure things were safe and no property was damaged, being abused, being yelled at, being spit on, having rocks, frozen water bottles thrown at them, and watching the press lie because they were calling it peaceful protest. When you start yelling and screaming and throwing rocks and bottles, it's no longer a peaceful assembly. It's not a peaceful protest. It's gone way beyond that. Now, one of the other things it requires post board and law enforcement to come up with model policies. We already have them, so we don't need them. But what I really find quite interesting is the fact that it requires the people putting these together, and also if somebody wants to change their policy or make it better, to come up with a policy, they have to have the nonprofits that organize public assemblies involved. But if they change their policy, they may want to consider the advice of council of nonprofits that organize public assemblies. That's sort of like having the German general in your meetings planning the invasion of Normandy. All these policies are public. They do always use best practices to come up with them. And with this amendment that was put on today, this bill should actually be heard in the Judiciary Committee. The way it is written, with the after-action review being inadmissible in court, in civil court, it has serious unintended consequences. When the report could actually exonerate an officer was only following orders from the mayor, his chief, the city council member, or any upper command, and new issues and knew that the orders were not proper, but the officers are required to follow them, the officer can be taken into civil court and sued and not use the after-action report to exonerate himself and put the blame where it belongs. I want to get this bill passed. I want to get the funds in the account to make sure that our law enforcement officers that come and assist anybody under mutual aid under Chapter 12, they don't that the local people that are not there it's not on the backs of the taxpayers of the jurisdiction where they came from. I know it's important. And I know public safety is important. It's just frustrating that an important bill like this that could have passed off this floor with 90 to 100 plus votes when it was first introduced had to be used for political purposes. Like I say, I want to get this passed, but this, right now in the current version, I cannot support this bill. I ask the members not to support it and to vote no on it. I really want to pass a good bill, but this is not the one. There's too many flaws in it, and if we pass this, this is the position of the House of Representatives. And this is the position that, if it should go into conference committee, of the position of the House of Representatives. And I know the law enforcement community has been texting a lot of you and emailing you. They're just looking at the dollars. They're not looking at the unintended consequences of this bill. They believe that'll get fixed. There's no guarantee that it could get fixed. We need to get it fixed before it leaves this chamber. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this bill is not about one community, despite what we've heard from some commenters tonight. This bill is about all of us coming together to protect our fellow Minnesotans. These events that we've seen this past year and a half are not the problem of one community. Let's remember why we're here. The nation watched the terrible tragedy of George Floyd being killed by a police officer. That resulted in appropriate and frankly overdue nationwide outrage and a national conversation. Individuals from around the state poured into our city. Individuals from around the country came to our city. Some of them were there to peacefully protest. Some of them, unfortunately, were there to cause harm. An alleged Boogaloo member, Ivan Harrison Hunter of Bourne, Texas, is facing a federal riot charge after investigators say he fired a rifle at the 3rd Precinct police station. Michael Solomon of New Brighton, Minnesota, and Benjamin Ryan Teeter of Hampstead, North Carolina, are each charged with providing material support to a foreign terrorist organization. There was an individual known as the Umbrella Man who methodically broke windows, set the first fire.
Madam Speaker,
and was associated with white supremacist group, the Aryan
Representative Miller.
thank you, Madam Speaker. Point of order. I've heard a speech many times over from Majority Leader Winkler about personalities in this room, and now I'm hearing name after name of people that aren't even representing themselves. Am I misunderstanding that point of order?
Representative Miller, Representative Long is naming people who are charged with crimes associated with the unrest, and that is facts related to this legislation. Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The arrest data from late May to early June show that there were individuals from 70 different Minnesota cities, 16 other states, and 1 foreign country who were arrested in our city. So I would just ask members, how would you feel if members of 70 different cities came to your hometown and were arrested for damaging your community? How would you feel if people from 16 other states and one foreign country came to your city and were arrested for damaging your community? Would you say then that it was only a local problem? And it wasn't just the May and June events either. When August 26 and 27, there was some unrest downtown. And there were individuals arrested in our city from Coon Rapids, from Rochester, White Bear Lake, Afton, Crystal, Lake Elmo, Inver Grove Heights, New Hope, just to name a few. There was an attempt to move this trial out of our city, but it was decided that public safety could be best maintained at the Hennepin County Courthouse, and so the trial was left in place. How would your community feel if this trial was being held in your community? And if individuals from around the country, from around the state, were descending on your community for what is going to be one of the biggest trials of the last several decades? This is not an issue for one town, for one city. This is an issue for all of us. This is an issue for our state to come together. And this is an issue where we know mutual aid will be needed. And mutual aid matters. This is what knits our society together. This is what is the true representative of our Minnesota values, where one city is stepping up to help out another city in need, where one community is reaching out to another community to provide aid. Just recently, with the tragedy in Buffalo, the Minneapolis Police Department sent its bomb squad personnel and canine officers to help. And last Wednesday, Minneapolis sent its bomb squad to St. Cloud to help. Mutual aid benefits everyone. But with a trial of this size and this level of attention, knowing the amount of damage that has been caused to date by primarily outside actors in our city, we know that we're going to need help. We know that there's going to need to be mutual aid from other cities. And we know that those cities are going to be providing a level of help that they often don't provide, that is asking them to step up more than just a single incident. It's going to be over a period of time. It's going to be for an extended need. And so this bill will help make sure that all of our communities can come together to protect one another for this trial. This bill is going to help all jurisdictions come together to keep us all safe. I want to thank Chair Mariani for his work on this bill, for improving it, for making sure that we have after action reports so that we know that that the actions that are being funded by this bill, we can learn from them and we can improve in the future, for trying to create some best practices to protect our First Amendment rights. These are improvements to the bill, and I'm grateful for his work on it. This is a challenge that is facing our entire state, and our entire state needs to come together to help. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Isanti, Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I did give a speech earlier on the amendment, which much of which could have applied to the bill itself, so I won't repeat that stuff. But I thought it was just a really great point that Representative Johnson made earlier. And as I was sitting here just thinking about this bill and what the path is to move forward, just the words that when he said this just resonated with me. And he said, the House position, right? We're trying to establish a House position so that we can enter into negotiations with the Senate and come up with a product. And our friends in the law enforcement community, and they are our friends, there's no question, our support for law enforcement in my caucus has been unwavering. I believe that the other caucus, for the most part, also supports law enforcement. That's not what this is about. But I think everybody in the chamber knows right now that this bill does not reflect a House position. And somehow we've got people outside the building involved in trying to convince people that, well, this is just what we need to do because we got to get a bill out of the House because then we can start negotiating with the Senate. I approached the speaker at the rostrum here before session and I said, why don't we just take a timeout? Why don't we have 4-party conversations with the 4 leaders and put on the table what we all want and need out of this and what we think is important. And let's come up with a bill that we can both pass out of the House and the Senate. But here we are, potentially about to vote on a bill. And I think what we're going to find out very shortly is that this bill in front of this body is not the House position. And unfortunately, for those that want to advocate for reforms in law enforcement and I don't mean to pick on Representative Mariani. I think he's the lead. It's his bill and he's the lead in that issue area. So we call it the Mariani Amendments. But those amendments come with passion and a lot of background from communities that I don't always understand. And they're probably important. But bringing up a bill on the House floor if you don't have enough votes to pass it from the majority caucus, without engaging the minority caucus on it, means that you don't have the votes to pass the bill. And all that's going to do is hurt and set back those amendments which some members of this chamber think are very important. So what I fear that we're about to do is declare what the House position is not. And I think it's really important that we remember that this body is very diverse. We come from very different districts from all over the state of Minnesota. And you've got members from areas who are not likely to be impacted by what could potentially happen, a reliving of last May, who are willing to stick their necks out and provide the funding necessary to make sure that we keep Minnesotans safe in communities far from their own. And they're willing to be part of footing the bill for that. Because we know that those events sometimes are larger than one community can handle and that one police department or sheriff's department can handle. So I think what we all need to do is take a very deep breath right now, and before we take a position on what the House position is not, and I'll even make a plea to Representative Mariani because I know you're passionate about those issues. Bringing a bill to a vote on the House floor that does not have the votes to pass will only set back those issues. So I'm going to ask the majority party to table this bill. And let's have the conversations that I spoke with the speaker about at the beginning here. Let's have those happen here over the weekend. And let's come back and revisit this bill on Monday. That's the responsible thing to do. That's the unifying thing to do. And it's the right thing to do. Pitting people against each other, pitting people outside this building against people inside this building, asking this body to take a position that we all know is not the position of the House of Representatives is not the way to pass a bill. And this issue, forget that it's me, and I know sometimes I can stand at the microphone and I'm unpleasant. I told you this year it was going to be a new me, and I was going to be the statesman. And I was going to behave myself. So forget that I'm a Republican and forget that it's me. The members of my caucus want to support law enforcement. We want to have a strong House position going out of here. But that needs to actually be the House position. I did talk to Senator Gazelka just a little while ago via telephone. He is very willing to have those conversations. I think he's available tomorrow. I did not talk to Senator Kent. I'm happy to make that phone call if I need to. But I'm just going to caution folks that this is the moment where I think it's better that we step away from brinksmanship legislating. That's what Minnesotans want, I think. I don't think they want brinksmanship legislating right now. I think it's wise if we just take a deep breath, step back from this. Let's table this right now, have some conversations over the weekend, and we can revisit it on Monday. There's no chance that anything will happen between now and Monday anyway if we pass this bill or if this bill fails on the House floor. But if it fails, it will be an incredible setback for the communities that could be forever impacted by events that could transpire in the next few weeks. So let's just together reduce the tension, reduce the heat. Let's deflate this a little bit. Let's let cooler heads prevail. Table the bill, and we'll come back Monday and see what we've learned over the weekend. Nothing can happen between now and Monday anyways. The Senate's not in session until Monday. And by the way, this bill does not have a Senate companion. This is not the companion bill to the one the Senate passed, so it doesn't automatically go to conference committee. Yes, we can work that out and play the dating game at the front desk here and rematch them, but that takes time too. We do have the time, we always have the time to have the conversations that will bring us together to get to a solution that's right for Minnesota. So I'm just asking that we do that now. And I want to make that motion to lay this on the table, but I'm not going to. I'm going to ask my colleague to do it, and I hope that you will. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this is the cooler heads bill. This bill is the product of a great deal of compromise, negotiation, and discussion among the people who feel most strongly about policing issues, reform, accountability, and the kind of safe communities that we want to have. It is unusual and rare that on an issue that is so visceral and so much at the very heart of life and safety in neighborhoods that have been so traumatized, is possible to come forward in a manner that is this much supported by both law enforcement and by many in the communities who it is designed to protect. It is not easy to do this. It is the work of Representative Mariani. It is work of many others who realize that above all else, we cannot let what happened last summer in Minneapolis and St. Paul happen again. The purpose of this bill is to stop that from happening. That is why in the letter from the Sheriff's Association, the Police Chiefs Association, the Minnesota Peace and Police Officers Association, they said that they are specifically urging us to pass the latest version of the Safe Account Bill. That's this version of the bill. They want us to pass it. They also say that supporting public safety and law enforcement efforts, First Amendment rights, and the shared priorities of public safety for all is bipartisan. They are asking for a bipartisan vote. In order to move forward as a body, in order to move forward to continue conversation about how to get this bill through the House and Senate, we need to act. It is less than 3 weeks until the trial of Derek Chauvin begins. And I believe we would be failing our obligations, failing our duties, if we did not take a clear position and find a way to move forward. Further compromise is possible. Many of the issues raised on the floor tonight are possible to include in future versions of this bill. We can do the work, but we cannot do the work as long as we do not take a position on passage for the Safe Account. So members, pass a bill that will help the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. It will help keep the peace. It will continue reform efforts to make certain that when we provide more money, we are also providing high enough standards for action and accountability for those standards. It is time to get the bill moving. We don't have time to wait any longer. Please vote yes.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Hassan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. We have been talking about the last 3 hours, Minneapolis, safety, civil unrest, mutual aid, etc., etc. What people failed to mention is the reason why all of these events took place was that a Black man was lynched in broad daylight. And all of us watched 9 minutes of a video as George Floyd begged for his life and uttered the words, "I can't breathe." So let's not forget the real damage happened to BIPOC communities in Minneapolis and St. Paul, who were subject to watching their neighborhoods burn to the ground. Many of the people in the legislature visited these neighborhoods and were shocked the amount of destruction caused by outside agitators and the lack of response from law enforcement. There is a rhetoric that has been echoed over and over that law enforcement are the real victims of this. But do we ever ask ourselves, how does the family of George Floyd feel? How do the hundreds of BIPOC business owners in Minneapolis and St. Paul feel about the state not coming to their support in their most needed moment? How do the BIPOC community members of this chamber feel listening to this conversation tonight? I just want to echo that the real victims of this are the family of George Floyd, a family who lost their son, a child who lost her father, and the people of Minneapolis and St. Paul who lost their businesses and who are living in constant fear. And when this trial starts, are going to be in constant fear and worry what's going to happen to them. Thank you.
The member from Ramsey, the author of the bill, Representative Mariani.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. All respect to Representative Hassan. Thank you for your words, Sister Hassan. Members, I want to thank the Public Safety Committee members, Public Safety and Criminal Justice Reform Committee members for the debate on this bill and for passing it forward. I want to thank the members of the Ways and Means Committee for doing the same. And I also want to thank the members here on the floor of the House for their debate. There's much that has been said. I don't need at this moment to repeat any of that. I think we were all paying close attention to one another, and I think that's critically, vitally important. I will say that there has been quite a few mischaracterizations of both what's in the bill and what the intent and what the impact would be of this bill. But members, I'm not going to get into a point-by-point rebuttal of those. I think it's really important that we not, right now, engage in fanning flames any higher than they might be. I totally get there's strong emotion, strong concern. I have my own. And yet, all of us, by virtue of what we do, are called to act. And the moment to act is now, for all the reasons that you've heard earlier in this debate. So let me just keep this very simple and very brief. First of all, this bill funds public safety. Yes, it funds police, quote unquote. This bill protects the public. Yes, there is a pragmatic, mature reason for Minnesotans to be concerned over the course of the next several months. This bill begins to extend our commitment to protecting our constitutional rights. These are our values. I told you a few days ago, I alerted you that there would be both an honest struggle, but also a false dichotomy offered about what is being attempted here. The false dichotomy that ignores the very American hard-earned lesson that there is, in fact, no safety if there is no protection of our constitutional rights. That there is no safety if there is no protection of our human rights. I can't think of few things so American as that hard-earned understanding. My own parents, who are immigrants, many of our members here in this body, whose parents are immigrants or themselves might be immigrants, understand this relationship deeply. I trust that all citizens of our state understand it and value it. That's what this bill does. Members, it funds public safety, it protects the public, and it applies protections to our constitutional rights. That's what you're being asked to vote for here this evening. Decide wisely. Thank you.
There being no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the bill as amended. Those voting remotely, please vote. Will the clerk call the names of those members who have not voted yet?
Burkle.
Burkle votes no.
Burkle, no. Davids.
Davids, no.
Davids, no. Detmer.
Detmer votes no.
Detmer, no. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Franzen. Franzen.
Franson votes no.
Franzen, no. Grossel.
Russell, no.
Grossel, no. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, no.
Gruenhagen, no. Hamilton.
Hamilton, no.
Hamilton, no. Houseman.
Houseman, aye.
Houseman, aye. Jordan.
Jordan, aye.
Jordan, aye. Keeler.
Keeler, aye.
Keeler, aye. Keel.
Keel, no.
Keel, no. Creshaw.
Grisha, no.
Creshaw, no. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Marquardt.
Harcourt, aye.
Marquardt, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, no.
McDonald, no. Nash.
Nash, no.
Nash, no. Poston.
Poston, no.
Poston, no. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Scott.
No.
Scott, no. Thompson.
Thompson, absolutely not. No.
Thompson, no. Zhang Jie. Zhang Jie.
Xiong J, no.
Zhang Jie, no.
Winkler changes from aye to nay. The clerk will close the roll. There being 63 ayes and 71 nays, the motion does not prevail. The bill is not adopted. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move reconsideration of passage of House File 445.
Representative Winkler moves reconsideration, moves that the vote by which House File 445 as amended was not passed be now reconsidered. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. No. The motion prevails. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, House File 445 be laid on the table.
Representative Winkler moves that House File 445 now be laid on the table. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. House File 445 is laid on the table.